Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Semi-final number 2 of my fountain pen tournament. The two pens that you've picked, TWSBI Eco and the Ranga Santa. Two quite interesting pens. I love both of these. Both of these pens have also got a 1.1 stub nib on them. Join me now, down on the table. We'll take a quick look at the pens, do some size comparisons, weights and measures. We'll do a writing sample. Then I'll give you my thoughts on these before handing over to you for you to vote on which should be the pen that moves forward to the grand final. Welcome down to the table and to semi-final number 2 of my fountain pen tournament. Today's contenders, we've got the TWSBI Eco and that's going up against the Ranga Santa. Both of these pens, they're the pens chosen by you in the votes for Heat 3 and Heat 4. Let's start by taking a walk through the body. So we're not going to do a detailed walk through the body. There's plenty of my videos where we've done that already. We're going to look at really a lot of the differences. I mean, the first difference here we can see it's the size. The Eco, definitely shorter, but in terms of width, they look very similar to me. We'll get a more detailed look when we look at our measurements. The Eco, we've got flat bottom and top. In the cap, we've got the TWSBI logo, and I love the hexagonal shape here. So we've got nice running down here, so we can actually see something a bit different about it. When we get to the body is a demonstrator. To be honest, it's a tube with a piston filling mechanism. That piston filling mechanism takes up nearly, between a third and a half of the body, so you lose that in ink capacity, but it still holds an awful lot of ink. The Ranga Santa, we've got the pointed ends, both bottom and top. I like the way we've got this red and the white. I think they contrast really well. Remember the name of the pen, Santa. So we've got Santa here with his hat, then we've got his clothes, and then in a way, I think that would have been nice maybe with black for boots, but maybe that's just me. The caps, so on the TWSBI, it takes half, one, about 1.5 turns to take the cap off. That reveals this nib here. I believe it's made by Yoho, about a number 5 size. With the Ranga, half, 1, 1.5, about 2 turns to take the cap off. Now, before I reveal the nib, I will show you this one. I've got a cartridge converter in here. There we go, with nice bright red ink in there. It's all resin, so I believe it may be possible to eyedropper this. And then that reveals the number 6 Yoho nib on this pen. Let's take a closer look at the nibs. With a TWSBI, as we see, it's fairly decorative, isn't it? It's smaller looking than what we're seeing with the Ranga. We've got the word TWSBI at the bottom. Above that, we've got the TWSBI logo. Then above that, we've got this nice decorative border. I think that looks really nice. It just, to me, adds a little bit. I would have liked to have seen this as a 2-tone nib. I just think 2-tone nibs add that little bit more. The nib on here is a 1.1 stub nib. With the Ranga, this is a plain Yoho nib. It's a 1.1 stub nib. Absolutely no decoration on here, apart from this little tiny line at the top. So very, very plain nib. Let's turn them both over. Actually have a look at the feeds. There we go, there's the feeds. The sections, I do actually quite like the TWSBI section. Again, it's demonstrator. You can see through it. You can see what's going on. I like that. I love seeing the inner workings. But similarly with the Ranga, we've got that white section again following through this theme of Santa. And both the red and the white, they're like a cracked ice typed material. Let's swap on over and do some size comparisons. I brought in my 2 standards. So we've got Pilot Metropolitan, Lamy Safari. Looking at this, the Eco, roughly same lengthwise, to be honest, as both the Metropolitan and the Safari. That Ranga, definitely longer. It does feel longer in the hand. The Metropolitan, also the narrowest of the pens. I would say the Eco and the Safari maybe about the same width. And just a little bit wider, as I say, we'll look in more detail when we do our measurements. teeny bit wider is the centre. Let's swap on over and take the caps off. With the caps off, we start to see a slightly different story. The Metropolitan now, that's the shorter of all the pens. The Eco, slightly longer than we're seeing with the Safari. The Ranga still that much longer pen. In the hand, the Eco, lengthwise, is quite nice. It does feel very narrow in the section. That's one of my issues with the Eco. It does feel a little bit on the narrow side. Will it post? It sort of posts. It seems to be going on to here. You can see this black O-ring here going around. That's where it seems to post onto. I never post these. I always worry that when I'm twisting the cap to take it off, I'll end up twisting the piston mechanism and then throwing some ink out. But it is postable. With the Santa, beautiful length, very, very comfortable. Again, the section does feel a little tiny bit on the thin side to me. We've got this lip at the bottom, which is very, very noticeable. But my fingers, they just rest very nicely on that. Again, it will post. Posted, it's very long. Let me see if I can get this. I don't think I can get entirely in camera. There we go. Just about. Very long and does feel back heavy. But unposted, to me, is just nice. Let's swap on over and look at some pens in roughly the same price range. The pens I've brought in the Mastodon M800, Chinese-made pen, 66 Aussie dollars. We've got the TWSBI Eco, Taiwanese-made pen, 59 Aussie dollars. We've got the Ranga Santa, Indian pen, 145 Aussie dollars. And we've got the Laban 325, and this is in Cambridge Brown, Taiwanese-made pen, 146 Aussie dollars. Again, looking at the sizes, both the Eco and the Ranga by far longer. The only real big difference we see with all of these is the nib on the Eco. The nib on the Eco, as I say, I believe is number 5 size nib. All the others, it's a number 6 nib. Let's pop the caps on these. With the caps on, the Ranga and the Laban, roughly the same size. Same with the Mastodon and the Eco. Maybe the Mastodon just edging out just a little bit, but not by a lot. Let's swap on over and fetch in the rule of measuring. Here we've got the rule of measuring. We'll start with the Eco. So the full pen, 13.8 centimetres. With the cap off, 13 centimetres. Posted, I say it does just about post, but I'm not comfy with it. 16.9 centimetres. The width of the body, so I measured that here at the widest point. That's 1.21 centimetres. It's the same width all the way down the body. It's just a tube. The width of the cap, that's 1.39 centimetres. The section goes from 0.84 and that goes up to 0.94. So I do feel this is very, very thin. Let's fetch in the Ranga. So the full pen, remember we've got pointy ends on this one, 15.1 centimetres. Unposted. Get that lined up. 14.1 centimetres. Posted. That's a whopping 18.5 centimetres. The body, I've measured it about here because it seems to come out a bit, then starts going back in. So I measured it here, that's 1.4 centimetres. The cap, 1.6 centimetres, definitely wider. The section goes from 1 centimetre up to 1.2 centimetres. So again, definitely a wider section. Let's swap over and fetch in the scales of weighing. Here we've got the scales of weighing. We'll start with the Eco. 22 grams for the full pen, and that's got quite a full fill of ink in it. 14 grams for the body, 9 grams for the cap. With the Ranga, not as much ink in this one, 26 grams. Body only, 16 grams, 10 grams for the cap. So, although it's a longer pen, the Ranga isn't that much heavier than we see with the Eco. Let's swap on over and we'll fetch in the notepad of testing. Just dropping in to interrupt your regular programming. Would you like to help support the channel? If so, please consider joining as a member. As a member, you'll get early access to my videos. I normally upload them a couple of days before they go out, and as soon as they're uploaded, they'll be released to members. There'll also be a shout out at the end of the videos, and then as we get the members coming in, we'll actually chat among ourselves and work out what other perks, what other things you'd like me to add in. You know, would you like maybe a monthly live chat just for members? All down to us. So please, if you can, consider joining the channel. A link will be in the description down below. Here we've got the notepad of testing. For the semi-final, I'm using Ayush paper. This is an Indian paper, 100 GSM, and it does have a slight creaminess to the paper, and if you run your fingers over it, you can feel a slight texture. So we start with the Eco. So we've got here a TWSBI Eco with a 1.1 stub nib. You can see the line variation coming through already, can't you? Price wise, 59 Aussie dollars. The ink is by Diamine and it's Black Ivy. Very dark green colour, but as it dries, we get this gorgeous red sheen coming through. Drying times, so we got immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. After a minute, there's still a little bit of a smudge, but not enough to do a 2-minute test. Just for completeness, the temperature is currently 25 Celsius and it's 50% humidity. Let's look at line variation. So here's going down with no pressure. Lovely wide line. Let's add a bit of pressure. Slightly wider looking line. This nib does feel quite soft and bouncy. Going across, again no pressure. So we get that narrower line. And again, I'm going to add a bit of pressure, but it doesn't change the line and it just feels very awkward and as if it's catching on the paper. So no pressure, with, none, with, none, with. So we do get this gorgeous line variation coming through. Going to move the mic down to the page and write a sentence. Very nice to write with. You can see that line variation coming through there. There's nice feedback, there's audible feedback, there's a nice tactileness. There is feedback, there's some nice audible feedback, there's a tactileness to it as well. And as I say, the nib got this nice softness. Let's do the flow test. Very nice, flows really well. Just going to lift this page up a little bit. Hopefully you can see there, we're starting to see that red sheen where I've done the writing. You can see loads of it on the TWSBI Eco and Diamine Black Ivy. You see it coming through in the sentence as well. And as that scribble's drying, it's starting to come through there. So very nice, beautiful ink in a nice pen that puts down this nice generous line. Let's move this page up. And now we'll do the writing with the Ranga Santa. So here we go, the Ranga Santa. So let's go. Ranga Santa. This nib does feel stiff already. Again, it's a 1.1 stub nib, which is interesting, so comparing very similar size nibs. Price wise, 145 Aussie dollars. Big jump in price from the other one. The ink by Diamine. And it's Wild Strawberry. attractive ink, nice summery coloured ink. We're still middle of summer here, so I think this ink does really well, especially in this red pen. Drying times, so we go immediate, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute. Again, still smudging a little bit, but not really enough to justify doing a 2-minute test. Line variation. So here's no pressure. Here's with pressure. It's a fairly stiff nib. A little tiny bit of a difference, but not that much. Wouldn't recommend putting any pressure on any nib, to be honest. I just do this for demonstration purposes. So going across, so there's no pressure. Again, with some pressure, just feels stiffer. None, with, none, with, none, with. I mean, you don't really need to push this. We've got plenty enough line variation coming through naturally. We'll move the mic and write the sentence. Again, we can see the natural line variation coming through there. The nib feels stiff, so it doesn't have that nice bounce that we get with the Eco, but we get this nice line. We get lovely feedback, lovely tactileness to this pen. Finally, the flow test. Gorgeous pen, very nice writer. So that's the Ranga Santa. So what are my thoughts for these pens? Let's start with pen looks. I mean, in terms of looks, I think this Ranga Santa is so much nicer. It draws the eye, this lovely cracked ice. With the Eco, there's loads of different colours, but it's a very similar pattern. You've got the cap, you've got the piston mechanism there in the colour. The rest of it is just a tube, and it's a very utilitarian looking tube. I think as a workhorse pen, the Eco is very, very good. Just not as attractive as the Ranga Santa. The Santa, bit limited. If you're going to be using a red ink, yeah, you'll get away with it. But other than that, you know, I tend to use this more around the Christmas period. And then just, as I say, a couple of times during the year when I want a red ink. Build quality, had no issues with either of them. There's been for years reports about issues with cracking on the Eco. I've not experienced it. I've had this pen about 3 years, if not just over 3 years, had no issues with it. I've got a number of Ecos, normally got at least one inked up all the time. Never had any issues with that. So build quality is fine. Same with the Santa, had no issues with this. Nice smooth threads, everything flows nicely, everything runs nicely. Easy to take that nib in and out if you want to swap it around. Yep, no problems there with build quality. Writing experience, I do like the softness of the nib on the Eco. I like softer nibs. I like nibs with a bit more feedback to it. So you've got some, not just character in what's going down on the paper, but character in like the tactileness in the feedback that you get through your hand. And I do like what I'm getting here with the Eco. With the Santa, I find the nib is a bit on the stiff side. There's still tactileness to it. There's still feedback, but not as much as I enjoy what I'm getting from the Eco. Ink flow, had a couple of issues with the Eco. So before I started this video, I went to do a bit of test writing, make sure it was fine, and the nib had dried out. I don't know, I can't really blame the Eco because we've just had a run of 3 days where it was over 40 Celsius. And I hadn't been using the pen. I hadn't actually used the pen for a couple of weeks. So we've had a lot of hot weather. That, chances are, is what's dried the nib out. But all I did was a couple of shakes and then scribble, and it started writing straight away. So yes, there have been ink flow issues, but I blame the weather. But saying that, the Santa's been there in the same weather, and the Santa started up straight away. Although I last used this only a week ago, so it hadn't been sat for as long. So ink flow, yeah, perfectly fine with that. Comfort, as I said with the Eco, I do find the section very small, very thin. Doesn't affect it when I'm writing. I can still write, a couple of pages with this, but I do find I start to get an ache around here after I've done a couple of pages. With the Santa, that wider section does make a difference. Would have liked it a little teeny bit wider, only maybe by 1 or 2 millimeters, but width-wise, not too bad. Length-wise, perfect, absolutely gorgeous. Value for money, for what you pay for the Eco, I think they're good value. They have gone up in price a lot though. When I bought this, it was about 40 Aussie dollars. The price I'm quoting is a price to buy one now, and I did find one in the exact same colour on, I believe it was Cult Pens. So they have gone up in price. I still think they're good value. I wouldn't now be happy to say this is a starter pen, whereas before I thought it could just about fit into that starter price range. But as that first intermediate pen, I think they are very, very good value. As I say, I've got a number of them, usually have got at least one inked up. The nib's very easy to take in and out. The nib on here, I actually bought this with an extra fine nib. I think it was the orange one, had this 1.1 stub nib on it. It took me about 30 seconds to swap the nibs over, dead simple to do. $145 though for the Ranga Santa. You're starting to get up into that price range to the more, what I would call a luxury style pen. To me, anything over 100, you're starting to get into that luxury style pens. It's a steel nib. Ranga do give you a massive selection of nibs, so you can pick which nib you want. Some of them you pay extra for. I believe I paid $10 extra for this. I might be wrong because it was about 18 months when I ordered this. This particular pen, it was a special one-off group buy. It was in December of 2022. Haven't seen it since then. I do keep looking because I may get another one. They had a number of different stylings, same colours, just different ways they had them organised. I think for a Christmas pen, it's really nice. I say it's a Santa pen. I think for the extra money that you're paying over what you're paying for that Eco, I actually think it's worth it, just for that Christmassy feel that it gives. So they're my thoughts on the TWSBI Eco with Diamine Black Ivy and the Ranga Santa with Diamine Wild Strawberry. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. So what are your thoughts on these pens? Which one should be the winner? Head on over to the YouTube community page. There you'll find a poll, your chance to have your say. Vote for the pen that will be going forward. The winner will be announced on next Sunday's live, and then following that, there'll be a week's delay because I need the time to record the video and get it ready before we have the grand final. Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.